Today we're going back in time a little bit. All right, my friends, we are going back in time because we are going to the land of make-believe today. We are at the Fred Rogers Center, that Mr. Fred Rogers, in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, just outside of Pittsburgh. We went to the John Hines Center in Pittsburgh the last time we came through, and we saw the actual set for Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. But in here, they have a lot more that we're gonna wanna see, so we're gonna enjoy this. Daze with Jordan the Lion begins right now. How can you not like Mr. Rogers? It was all about positivity and just you being you and being good enough for being you. This is kind of cool. As soon as you walk in, they have his logo. His logo was like this dinosaur with a Mr. Rogers sweater on. And the art on here has Mr. Rogers with all of his friends, Daniel and King Friday. And of course, Mr. Rogers wrote all the music for the show. There's the trolley. And the reason that he wrote all the music was because that was his way of expressing himself when he was a little boy. So here, as soon as you walk in, there's the Fred Rogers Archives. And if you look through these windows, you can see some interesting things from his archives. Like right there, you can see the box that says King Friday marionette. And some of the puppet props over here. Then over here, it's fan mail. There you can see one of the puppets. Some more of his fan mail, lots and lots of fan mail. Then look over there. You've got part of the castle over here. Scary. Oh, there's King Friday up there. And there's Pittsburgh Magazine naming Mr. Rogers Man of the Year. Or actually, it was Pittsburgher of the Year. Here's a picture of Mr. Rogers on set. There's Mr. Rogers and Mr. McFeely in the makeup chair. We got Fred there. There he is with one of his kids. Let's go see what's upstairs. Now as we enter the second floor, discovering the truth about ourselves is a lifetime work, but it's worth the effort. So the greatness of Mr. Rogers was that he never lost that childhood, adolescent charm, like that positivity, I guess you would almost say, the ability to think like a child. He never lost that. And he said when he was a very little boy, he was always sick, so his imagination was key to getting through every day. He would play with his toys, using his knees as mountain ranges, and learned how to play piano. Said that in his house, his parents didn't really allow him to express himself with words, or he was always afraid that if he used the wrong words or something, he would get himself in trouble. So he didn't want to do that. So he would express himself through playing his piano. And his childhood home is still here in town, so we'll go there afterward. There he is with his dog and teaching his little sister Lainey how to play the piano as well. There's the Latrobe trolley car, which Fred loved to ride with his family. And his middle name was McFeely, so that's where Mr. McFeely got his name, but his family owned a brick company, so they're pretty wealthy here in town. That's McFeely Bricks right there. So inside this case, you can see a couple of things from McFeely, like this piece of wood says McFeely on it. Now Fred basically was on his way to be an ordained minister, and right the last year he came home for vacation of his college and found out about television, saw television, and he didn't like the use of television that it was being used for entertainment, but he thought it had a really good purpose for children's education. So he eventually decided to basically mix his love of children and understanding that children need an outlet. They need to be told that it's okay to have emotions and to be yourself and everything. So that's what he created his first show around. And you can see the puppets are over here. This is great. The puppets came about because he had an early version called Cartoon Corner that he would do a show and he would get free movies, and the movies would often be so brittle that they would break. And one time that happened, so he just grabbed a little tiger doll that someone gave him and did a little puppet voice, and that's how they all came about. Look, these are the real deal. These are the, wow, that is so cool. Wow, Lady Elaine Fairchild and King Friday. Wow. There's Daniel. These are so cool to see. I love it they have them all displayed. See, I was a huge Mr. Rogers fan when I was a little boy. Didn't care so much about Sesame Street or any of that other stuff, but Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was where it was at for me. I liked when the theme song would start. I loved seeing him walk in that door. And basically, in my mind, he was putting on his play clothes, changing out of his adult clothes and putting on the play clothes because it was time to have fun. And you always learned something. You always change the sweater and change the shoes. I remember those shoes very well. And the story on his sweaters was that his aunt used to make all of his sweaters. So he got into wearing those all the time. Let's make the most of a beautiful day. Here, look at this. Here's an early version. And he's got the puppets even then. His kids said even when he would be at home and he would want to have like a difficult conversation with them, instead of being himself, he would go into one of the character voices, one of the puppet voices, and pull out his puppet. There he is with his beloved wife. There they have the Mr. Rogers records. Won't you be my neighbor? He said it was always an invitation. His show was basically, he always did the song because he wanted every kid to know, you're invited to be in my neighborhood if you want to be today. Let's be together today, it says. And the other thing about him wearing the sweaters and the shoes and everything, he said that he wanted to also always show himself putting them on a coat hanger, being responsible. Oh my gosh! It's the neighborhood trolley that takes you to the land of make-believe. Wow, I bought the replica of this at the Heinz Center, but man, that was just always such a cool part of the show. After Mr. Rogers would talk to the kid or whoever was, a lot of times he would have like a guest on. He would then send the trolley into the land of make-believe, and that's where we would see King Friday, and wow, what a world. So cool to see this. Wow, I just can't believe it. Hand painted on top, the neighborhood trolley. There's the little whistle. And there he is with the trolley. And there's his cast. Like I said, he would have kids as guests, but then he also had like Mr. McFeely, and he had the neighborhood police officer, and just various people that would come around and visit, and he would always use them to kind of help teach a lesson as well. But for the most part, whenever it was a puppet or anything, it was Fred doing the voices, as you can see there. Now there's the clock. That was great. You could always see that in the episodes. That originated from, I think I called it Cartoon Corner. It was called Children's Corner. It was actually like a show that Fred did before he did Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And he had a painting of that as like his backdrop on that show. And when he started doing Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, he wanted a real one. So that was on there for the duration of the show. That thing is huge too. It's gotta be, I'd say 10 feet tall. What great children's history. Totally one of the good guys. Never involved in any kind of drama or never discredited or anything, proven to be a fraud, nothing like that. He even went and fought for PBS when they almost lost their funding during the Nixon administration, and he spoke as to why it was important to give money to children's education and actually got $20 million for his speech. Fred would say he was kind of a heavy kid, so he was obsessed with maintaining the same weight, 143, when he was growing up. He was an avid swimmer. There they're mentioning his weight. It's 143 because 143 can mean I love you. Fred once took a trip to Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh because he wanted to ease children's fears about the emergency room and getting stitches. He won 5 Emmy Awards, and this says in 1984, the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. added one of Mr. Rogers' sweaters and a pair of his sneakers to their collection. And there's a filming day on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood right there. All the people involved, from actors to crew. There's a very young Mr. Rogers. If you could only sense how important you are to the lives of those you meet, how important you can be to the people you may never even dream of. There's something of yourself that you leave at every meeting with another person. Quoted Fred Rogers. And then here you turn these and they tell a story about the person in the picture with him, how important they were. This was a very important episode when he had him on. Little Jeffrey Erlinger. He was a 10-year-old boy with disabilities visited with Mr. Rogers. Jeff explained why he needed an electric wheelchair, and he demonstrated how he used it. Fred recalled this meeting with Jeff as one of his most treasured moments in the studio. And Jeffrey grew up and got to see Mr. Rogers when he was an adult as well. Surprised Mr. Rogers. And there he is with Captain Kangaroo, Bob Keeshan. Known for his television personality, Captain Kangaroo came to visit Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood many times. This one was Margaret Hamilton when the Wicked Witch came. From The Wizard of Oz. She played the Wicked Witch of the West on Wizard of Oz, explained how makeup transformed her into the witch. Because many children are afraid of witches, she explained that it was just pretending to be a witch. Julia Child. Julia Child prepared Marco Polo pasta, spaghetti with tuna, at Chef Brockett's Bakery. She chose this recipe because it's one that children could help their parents with at home. Oh, and there he is visiting Coco. Coco the gorilla. 300-pound gorilla. Renowned gorilla expert, Penny Patterson, the Gorilla Foundation in Woodside, California. Coco, who had seen Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood on television, mimicked what she had seen on the program by taking off Mr. Rogers' shoes. And you'll have things you'll want to talk about. I will too. And there's Fred relaxing at his home. He loved to read his fan mail, it says. He was an avid letter writer and maintained correspondence with many people over the years that would reach out to him, young and old. There he is with Daniel. And President Clinton holding the trolley. It says when Fred's car was stolen from its parking spot, the story was on the news. Within 48 hours, the car was returned with this note: if we'd known it was yours, we'd never had taken it. And this case is full of fan letters that he's received from people here. And if you look around, you notice they have screens kind of all over the place. They show different clips from his career, and I'm just not showing them because I assume they're copywritten, but just kind of adds to the experience.
Thank you very much for coming by. I asked Jeff, this is my friend Jeff Erlinger. He's one of my neighbors here, and I asked him if he would come by today because I wanted you to meet him, and I wanted you to see his electric wheelchair.
Oh, that's crazy. He's on Arsenio wearing a jacket like Arsenio.
More people would watch Mr. Rogers instead of some of the things you see going on I had a kid tell me the other day, I said, be good, you don't want to end up in a box. And he told me, he said, hey, I'm already dead, brother.
Weighs heavy on all of us, doesn't it?
Yeah?
And there's no simple answer, of course. Let people know that each one of us is precious.
And in this case over here, they have a few of his awards. One of them looks like a small Emmy. Let's see what that is. That is called the Philadelphia Regional Chapter of the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, 1992 Governor's Award, given to Fred Rogers for Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And then here are a couple of PBS awards, 3 different PBS awards. First one says Most Improved in Technical Quality. Second one is Excellence in Technical Quality. And the third one is Improvement in Technical Quality. There you can see his typewriter. And there we have a bust of Mr. Rogers and a United Way Award. And that's just a bus, and it has a little sign on the side that says, Pittsburgh is Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. I honestly could probably just stand here and look at these all day. It's just such a moment from my youth to see all this stuff. I just can't get over it. And Daniel lives on. Daniel's got his own show now. Here's an old board game they used to sell. It's crazy because he was not a fan of merchandising himself at all. That didn't come about till, I think, after he was passed. Apparently you used to be able to buy the trolley then. Now this was absolutely awesome. I am so glad that I came and checked out the Fred Rogers Center. But what do you say we go see his childhood home? Let's go see the real Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Also hometown of Arnold Palmer, the golfer. Well, here it is. Inside this big giant house, one of the bedrooms would have been Fred Rogers' bedroom. Like I said, he was an awfully sick child. He said he had just about everything you could get, including, I want to say, scarlet fever. Said he was always ill, always in bed. And like I said, inside the museum, that was kind of what provoked him to give characters to his little toy figures that he was playing with, give them voices, and just to explore his imagination, as well as learning the piano and just everything that went into making him the man that he was. Just kind of surprising to find out that he always felt that he couldn't express himself unless it was through music. He grew up to originally thought he was going to be an ordained minister, and then came home and told his parents he wanted to be on TV. And they said, be on TV? You don't even know what TV is. You've never even seen it. And he had barely seen just a little. What he had seen was like comedy skits of like people throwing pies at each other. And that was when he said he didn't like that aspect of it, but he saw where it could be used as a very useful tool. Now, he not only was raised here, but he's also buried here. So let's go out to his grave. It's just kind of sad to even think about Mr. Rogers not being alive anymore. Here we are at Unity Cemetery. Interesting story about this chapel. They wanted to tear it down at one point, and Fred's father didn't want him to. So he helped fund and make the bricks to restore this. So right here on the corner, you see the name Rogers, and who I think this is, I think these are his grandparents, because his father's name's James, and his mother's name was Nancy, but they would not have passed away in the mid-30s, so that's got to be his grandparents. Also, Fred's father is buried in the same tomb with Fred, which is in here this mausoleum right here, but it's a little confusing because the name on top of it is not Rogers. You'll see there's 2 G's on the door. It's given. Both of his parents are in here. He's in here. His wife's in here. And his aunt, who was a diplomat, her ashes are also in here. Now, as soon as you look inside, directly down to your left, Fred McFeely Rogers right there. He passed away from stomach cancer, sadly. 2003. And then a little deeper into there are his parents, right there in the center. And then Fred's wife is actually to the right of us and down, right across from him. And on hers, you can see that she just passed away. 2021. She went by Joanne. They were together from the very beginning. I mean, like when they met in school, they both played music and they bonded over music, and they both had similar childhoods where they both felt like they were never allowed to be upset or angry or mad, and they were just a great couple. Had 2 sons. The son said that living with Mr. Rogers was like having the second Jesus for a father, because he just never did anything wrong. Rest in peace, Fred. Rest in peace, Rogers family. And there definitely hasn't been anyone even remotely like him since. Stood what he stood for honestly and lived it. Well, my friends, we're going to call it a day. I hope you were a Mr. Rogers fan, or I hope you at least appreciate what he stood for and everything that he did. He made like 800 and some episodes in his time making television. That's a lot of people to reach in a lifetime, for just one man especially. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all next time. Have a great night, and goodbye. Won't you be my neighbor?